Having a positive movie experience can be nothing short of magical. It's a feeling very similar to the magical spur of adrenaline I get when Jake looks at me in that special way. Magic can be used in the movies to cover up small plot holes, to unite friends, and to fight bad guys in a unique and visually exciting way. Today we're going to take the term movie magic literally and talk about The Prestige. The Prestige is a beautiful looking and very deep movie and is one of my favorite films of all time. My name is Matt from Cinema Brawls, also known as an orphan vigilante trying to clean up the streets in an attempt to avenge my father, and this is why The Prestige is a perfect 10. The usual disclaimer: perfection is a very subjective term, and these videos are purely based on our opinions, just like all our videos. There's plenty to say about why a movie is bad and nitpick the things you don't like about our particular work. But this show is entirely based on bringing a positive spin to the films we love. If you agree with what I prepared for you all today, please comment below, and if you disagree for any reason, feel free to share those opinions as well, but please try to keep things constructive for the sake of others, and remember the reason why we do Perfect 10. The opening scene of this film has the 50-50 split, beautiful and obnoxious voice of Michael Caine narrating the premise of the movie. Any magic trick has 3 parts: the pledge, the turn, and, wait for it, the prestige. I'll explain a little bit more why this is important later, but I bring it up now because not only are magic tricks formatted this way, but the entire movie itself is also formatted this way. Because of this common theme, I thought it would be fun to also format this video the same way. So, enough introduction, let's get right into it. The first part, the pledge or the premise. In a magic trick, this is where the magician shows an audience an ordinary object and describes what he's going to do. This is where I'll introduce the premise of this film and go over a few first impressions. The Prestige is a drama mystery film that came out in 2006 and is written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, Michael Caine, and a very gratuitous appearance of the late great David Bowie. The film follows a pair of aspiring magicians, Alfred Borden, Bale's character, and Robert Angier, Jackman's character, told through Angier's personal journal read by Borden while he awaits the death penalty for killing Angier. Are you still with me? After a tragic accident on stage during a trick, the two start a bitter rivalry of constantly sabotaging and one-upping each other. Borden starts performing a trick where he tosses a ball down the stage, steps in a door, and appears in another door at the other end to catch the ball. Angier goes through painstaking efforts to try and recreate the trick, breaking down his body and his mind in the process. He hears of a renowned scientist by the name of Nikola Tesla, yes, that Nikola Tesla, played by David Bowie, yes, that David Bowie. They build a machine that can duplicate Borden's trick by cloning Angier and literally killing off a clone every night he performs it. Borden catches word of this and decides he's going to straight up kill Angier once and for all. He does, but gets caught in the act. It is later revealed, however, that in a twist almost no one saw coming during their first watch-through, that Borden has a secret twin brother that he used to perform the disappearing man trick. Borden gets put on trial for Angier's murder and hung, while his twin escapes to raise Borden's daughter and live a new life. Crazy, right? But what did you expect from the same guy that wrote and directed Inception, a film that still has some moviegoers scratching their heads? I love this film for its unique atmosphere, complex storytelling, and incredible character development. See, the time period it's set in seemingly never gets old in my opinion. It was a time when people were just starting to learn to build and prosper as a community. A new age of humanity had just begun, and people were inventing things, expanding their minds, and nothing seemed impossible or out of their reach. A perfect time period for people to not only be entertained by magic, but a setting that practically begs for magic to really exist. Every character has such an arc in this film. You see Borden and Angier desperately try to beat each other, making sacrifice after sacrifice, only to find out they have to go further. There's so much pain in everyone's eyes that it's a bleak but intriguing contrast to the hopeful eagerness of the time period. Michael Caine's character struggles as he watches two of his pupils, two of his sons, destroy each other every chance they get. Angier is beaten down to the ground after the death of his wife. Borden's wife is tormented by the thought of not knowing her husband, only to find out she really doesn't because his twin brother was posing as him for part of the time. And Borden himself is forced to live a half-life just so he doesn't reveal his secret brother and blow the trick that cemented his career. I mentioned the masterful storytelling of this film, and here's what I mean. Christopher Nolan is a brilliant director and has a very unique form of storytelling. He believes cinematography can be a powerful force, and he makes his films very immersive experiences. Many of his films are about film itself, dancing the line between immersive and meta-cinematic, which means a film is telling the audience about film itself, often referring to the making of the very film they're watching. For example, the crew in Inception operates and interacts like a film crew. DiCaprio's character is the director. Ellen Page is the production designer, Tom Hardy is the actor, and Ken Watanabe is the studio. All of them are trying to convince the studio of a certain idea to buy into the film they're making. In The Prestige, Nolan directs it in a way that's like magic itself. By the use of editing, just simple cuts and transitions, he hides a lot of the story's main plot points right in plain sight. He shows his hand right away, but through the way that it's formatted, you don't realize it until the very end. For example, the title card is presented on a background of multiple top hats in the woods. It is immediately followed by a bunch of canaries in cages while Michael Caine delivers the premise and the 3 parts. This multiplicity is key to the story's plot and main twist, but we don't realize it until the end. The audience is left at the director's mercy, being carried by the narrative momentum, and when we finally get it, we almost immediately want to start the movie over and try to pick up on all the clues we missed. See, The Prestige becomes meta-cinematic because the way it is edited and filmed becomes like a magic trick in and of itself. With that said, however, we come to the second part of the trick, the turn, or the distraction, or the twist. See, even though I think this story is as tight as possible, having such a smart plot and a smarter twist sort of begs for a probing eye. People go into this film expecting there to be some sort of crazy mystery, and it's a challenge to the audience to try and figure it out as fast as possible.
That wasn't
Challenge accepted.
It may not be on the first watch, or the next one, or even the next one after that, but once you do figure out the twist, much like a real magic trick, the magic is gone. See, a good example of this is from a scene in the film when we see a young boy watching an amateur magician performing the same bird trick that everyone in this film seems to intuitively know. The man collapses the cage and the bird disappears, but then the little boy starts crying. When asked what's wrong, he says he's sad because the man killed the bird. He is reassured that the bird is fine, and the man reveals the bird in his hand, but the boy is still upset. He says, "But what about his brother?" We see in the film exactly how the bird trick is performed, and it really does include killing a bird and revealing a second one. The boy saw right through the magic trick and came out of it not as enthused as others might have been. Really quick, I just want to point out how interesting it is that Angier basically recreates the bird trick for his version of the disappearing man, killing a duplicate of himself and revealing another one at the end. It makes sense because without knowing about the twin brother thing, this is how a man of his talents would see this trick, exactly like the bird trick. So, once you figure out the twist of this movie about Borden's secret twin brother, you might argue that there's nothing much to it and the experience is done. Some have even written off as boring because they predicted the ending and then they were done. But I would argue differently. Once you've figured out the twist, you want to watch it again so you can pick up on everything you missed relating to that twist. See, now you're watching closer. Maybe you pick up on something else you didn't notice, and the story becomes richer. You discover a new theory, perhaps, and then you watch it again to fully explore that one. The point I'm trying to make is that it's more about the journey than it is about the destination. It's not about that you figured out Borden had a brother, it's about the journey getting there. It's about how you watched and rewatched a particular piece of art and picked it apart for everything it has. It's like predicting the future of the MCU with small details and in-credit scenes. It's like combing through Pixar films and finding every Easter egg you know it has. That's what the directors want in the end, is for their work to persevere longer than the couple of weeks it's showing in theaters. So, on that note, I wanted to talk about a few thoughts and theories that I've had and others have had and provide a little nudge to get you to rewatch The Prestige. Consider first Angier and the cloning process. So he couldn't have just cloned himself once. He had to clone himself multiple times every night and kill off a clone every night because he can't leave any collateral and risk being found out. What if Borden had stuck backstage and tried sabotaging him again? What if Angier is so paranoid about something going wrong, he has to kill the clone because he can't even trust himself? On that note, did Michael Caine know about Borden's brother? And if he did, does that mean he couldn't trust Angier either? See, what if Angier is the bad guy? What if Borden killing Angier's wife wasn't the first incident? See, what if what we see in this film is yet another magic trick? It's very possible Tesla's machine doesn't do anything at all aside from creating sparks. It could all be another misdirect to distract the audience from what's really happening. Maybe all the clones in the water tanks at the end were simply wax figures placed there to frame Borden and finally get revenge for the death of Angier's wife. See, all of this and more, I'm sure, are theories and ideas that came because of small details Nolan included on purpose so people will watch and rewatch his film and be rewarded with another layer of depth to this fantastic film. But after all of this, we still have one more part, the final part, the prestige. The final part is where the reveal occurs. So why did I waste the whole second part talking about the twist ending? That's because there is something else going on under the surface of this film. All the magic and the betrayal and the twists offered in the film are just a distraction from what the film is really about, and that is a question. Is your legacy worth dying for? Most, if not all, of Christopher Nolan's films are about a single question. Take, for example, Inception again. It took around a decade after the film's release when I saw an article online saying they finally cracked the ending for Inception. Was Cobb in a dream or reality? And the answer was basically, it doesn't matter. Cobb was finally happy and content with his life, whether it was a dream or reality. So it poses the question, are dreams better than reality, and is there really a difference? Again, it took several watch-throughs before we came to this conclusion. The Batman trilogy isn't only about the comic book Batman, even though it is. It's about consequentialism. If you do something bad for the greater good, does that make you bad or good? And it just so happens to have Batman in it. For good reason, too. It poses the question through Batman and each one of his villains. I mean, he literally says it when he gives the line, "I'm the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now." Gotham doesn't need to worry about whether the consequences of a person's actions define their moral worth. They just need to see the good guy, Harvey Dent, doing the good thing and simply recognize it as good. And that's enough. So, the prestige is about legacy and what these two people are willing to do to get it. They used to be friends once upon a time. But now they lie, they kill, and undermine each other just for the sake of legacy and fame. Borden and his brother are forced to live half-lives. Angier lives in constant fear of whether the real him or his clone will be the one to take the hit for that night's show. Is it worth it? Every theory posed can all be satisfyingly closed with the same question. What if Tesla's machine was fake? If it was, is Angier's legacy worth the trouble? There's one more theory I haven't mentioned yet that I feel fits best here. In the scene when Angier goes to one of Tesla's presentations, notice the guy in the audience with the beard who's clearly not having a good time. We see this man later at a hotel, and the concierge says he's a spy of Thomas Edison's. What isn't totally apparent on the surface is how the plot of The Prestige loosely mirrors the very real rivalry of Tesla and Edison. They also used to be friends, but started competing against each other for business. They would attend each other's presentations, heckle, and even sabotage each other to try and get the upper hand. It ended with Tesla's death, and even though Edison had some original ideas of his own merit, he's still getting credit for some of Tesla's original ideas. So what if this film is really about the very real rivalry instead of the one we see? That leaves us to wonder who represents Edison and who represents Tesla. Angier is like Edison because he spends most of his time trying to copy Borden's original idea for a trick, but Borden is also like Edison because he spent most of his time trashing Angier's name instead of coming up with something new. Oh wait, does it matter? Oh right, because either way it still comes back to the question about legacy. Edison and Tesla spent a lot of time trashing each other's ideas just for the sake of building up their own legacy, and so the question we ask ourselves is what are we willing to do for our own legacy, and would it be worth it? This movie is so perfect that you can watch it over and over with new ideas and new perspectives and come to the same question. And each time it adds a new light and makes you think a little bit more. Once again, it isn't about the destination and how you figured out the twist or even realized the question it is asking. It's about the journey getting there. you sat and watched through this movie through multiple times and found a new appreciation for it. In conclusion, The Prestige is one of my favorite films of all time. I love the style, the setting, and all the characters. The story is written and filmed extraordinarily well, and it provides so many thoughts and perspectives. It is a movie that requires many different watch-throughs and is very deserving of each one, and therefore I believe The Prestige to be a perfect 10. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Again, please leave your comments below on whether you agree and mention some other theories you may have about this film. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Dance, magic dance, dance, magic dance.